Today on the Lazy RPG Talk Show, we are going to look at the Beast Kickstarter, a new Shadowrun 5e bundle of holding that's going on right now, new Dyson 2024 commercial map pack that's available. I'm going to talk about the RPGs I am most excited for in 2026. We're going to talk today. Today's DM tip is about how to get started building your campaign. When you're starting a campaign for the first time, what are the things you should do to start your campaign? We're going to take a look at that, and we're going to cover more questions from the Patreon Q&A, all today on the Lazy RPG Talk Show. I'm Mike Shea, your pal from Sly Flourish, here to talk about all things in tabletop role-playing games. Right now, until December 17th, 2025, we're having a 20% off sale of all of the books on the Sly Flourish bookstore, except for City of Arches. And anybody who purchases $60 or more gets free shipping in the United States or the UK. So all of our books are available. You can find a link to the bookstore in the show notes, shop.slyflourish.com. You can also go to slyflourish.com and click on any of the book icons, and they'll take you to the shop. All of the discounts are applied at checkout, so add the products that you want to your checkout, and you will then get the 20% off discount plus free shipping if you spend $60 or more and are in either the US or the UK. This includes both physical books and digital books, so you can add it all together. And while you do not get 20% off of City of Arches does count towards the $60 if you are getting if you were seeking the free shipping. So it's a very good deal. Big sale that we're doing right now until 17 December. Do not miss out. We do get people that come in and are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I missed out." So make sure to get this. And if you want to get some good books for the GMs in your life, I recommend Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master and The Lazy DM's Companion and Forge of Foes, all fantastic books to help GMs run awesome games. Those are all available on the Sly Flourish bookstore. And again, 20% off all books. Don't miss it. Over on Sly Flourish, I released, so last week we had the article, My Favorite RPG Products of 2025. I also talked about it on the show last week, so if you want to hear me talk about my favorite products and why I think they're great, you can read it on the website, or you can go watch the video where I talk about it. I was very happy with the products that I picked. They have served me well. I just put out my Chessex mat just before the show to get ready for my game, so that was really fun. And that article, of course, went out to those who subscribe to the Sly Flourish newsletter, which you should totally do. It's absolutely free to sign up, and you get articles like this sent right to your inbox with links to all of the other work that I do. So that was last week's article. Next week's article is Running Shadowdark's Scarlet Minotaur as a one-shot game. So the article is running Shadowdark's Scarlet Minotaur as a one-shot. So Scarlet Minotaur is the adventure that is included in the free, the digitally free. If you buy it physical, I think it's $20. It's a really good deal for the quick start guides for Shadowdark. And the adventure that is included in that is Lost Citadel of the Scarlet Minotaur, which is a 1st to 3rd level Shadowdark adventure. I have now been running this as a single session game at various conventions. I'm going to be running it at Page, which is coming up in January. And I ran it in a convention before. I think I ran it at Page previous year as well. So I wrote an article about how to take the adventure that is inside the Quick Start Guide and get it to fit into a single session game using my trick of, hey, the big boss monster is coming near the end of the session. No matter where you are or what you're doing, you have to collect as many of these magical items as you can before the boss shows up. That's my trick for running Ravenloft. Crypts of Corrigulon, the Shadowdark adventure that I wrote for my Patreon, that is also uses that same trick. And you can do so. You can modify the adventure in here to do it as well. So that article is coming out next week on Sly Flourish. Also, for patrons of Sly Flourish, every quarter I zip up everything in my campaign vaults. All the campaigns that I run for my games, I have an Obsidian vault. You can see examples of them here. I've got my Dragon Empire game. I've got 2 new campaigns that I just started. Lure of Hylaeus, which is my Daggerheart campaign that I'm going to be running on starting next Friday, and Misty Vale, which is my Dragonbane campaign, which I'm going to be doing on Wednesday. I also have all my old campaigns, Empire of the Ghouls, the Black Cathedral, my City of Arches game, and my Daggerheart Wildfire game, which is actually a one-on-one game that my wife and I did. So I have all of those zipped up in a file that I then release to patrons of Sly Flourish. You can find it in your Patreon rewards page. You can download it. You can also find the template for your own Lazy GM campaign template is available there as well. So that is available to patrons of Sly Flourish. The vaults, my Obsidian vaults, also, it's all the markdown files that I have for all of my campaigns are available to patrons who ask for it, along with files like the one-page campaign summaries that I do. They're available in there as well. And that's updated every quarter. So I just updated it recently. So my friend Chris Sims was the lead creator of a new RPG called Beast. Beast is done by Studio Midhall. It is based on a board game. I'm not familiar with the board game. And it is a what I call like a 5e wrapper. So it includes 3 books, a player guide, a GM guide, and a monster guide. But expects you to have the core rules for 5e from some system. It is built for D&D 2024, so that is likely the system that you'd want to use it with. And it's an entire system that is built around the idea of sort of hunters that exist in a realm where giant magical beasts have taken over. So looks really cool, very interesting. I will show you the preview. We'll take a quick look at the preview. So it includes a 100-page PDF preview. So if you take the one recommendation I have for you is to go get the preview. Unfortunately, they do not have the single-click download preview. You instead have to sign up with your email address and they email you the preview. In this case, because it's a 100-page preview, I kind of give them a little leeway on that. Normally, I'd say it should always just be a click. Don't ask for anything. I'm trying to buy your stuff. Please don't get in the way between me trying to buy your stuff. If I want to see what it looks like and you're going to give me a sample, don't make me sign up for stuff. However, it's just an email address. But when you send your email address, you do get a 100-page preview that shows it. So if this Kickstarter sparks your curiosity, I would definitely recommend checking out the preview so you can see the quality of the material that's in here. Really cool artwork, excellent page design. Chris Sims is the lead designer on it. I've had the opportunity to work with Chris on a few different projects. He's fantastic. So looks very, very interesting. I will say it is a bit costly. So it is probably not the easiest. I mean, other than downloading the 100-page campaign guide or the 100-page preview and looking through that and seeing if you want. Otherwise, it is a 3-book. RPG. And if you want all 3 books, it's about $80 for the 3 PDFs of the 3 books. You can get each of the books separate, but I wonder how useful they would be separate. I have a feeling that if you're going to run this kind of RPG, you would want to pick up all 3 books. However, at that price range, it's really beyond just like, hey, let me try it out and see, right? It's instead of you kind of just collecting it, you really want to know that you're going to run a campaign like this. So I would recommend checking out the preview first. If it's interesting to you and you like it and you think, yes, this is definitely the material that I want to run for the game that I want to play, then it's almost certainly worth picking up. But I don't think it doesn't quite hit the impulse buy for me. So looks really neat. The Hunter's Guide has 30 subclasses, 40 spells, 35 feats, customizable origins, a grudges and corruption system. The Chronicler's Guide, which is sort of the GM tool, has 3 adventures, guidance for new rules, exploring and tracking, dealing with the wild and perilous setting. And then the Bestiary includes more than 100 monsters, including 7+ beasts. These beasts are like huge titanic creatures walking the land. Each of them, so 300 pages for the Hunter's Guide, 200 pages for the Chronicler's Guide, and 200 pages for the Bestiary. So a lot of material, right? That's 700 pages of material. So a lot of material. And again, the preview shows the kind of quality of the design and the layout and the art and the other things that you're going to get in this book. So it looks really cool. So that is the Beast Kickstarter, available right now on Kickstarter. You can find a link down in the show notes. Shadowrun has 2 bundles of holding going on right now. One of them is the Shadowrun 5e Essentials. And you can, I think, if you get the core and bonus collection, is currently the threshold price is $30. If you are interested in Shadowrun, this is a really cheap way to get a ton of Shadowrun products, including the 5e starter set, whole bunch of different supplements for it. I've not really played Shadowrun. It's really cool. I've played the video games. There's some Shadowrun video games that I played, and I really kind of dug that. But this to me, like this is the sort of impulse buy. If you're like, yeah, I'm kind of interested, like this is a way to own like the entire Shadowrun 5e line for $30. So there's actually two different ones. There's the Shadowrun 5e Essentials, which is looks to be about 11 different products that you get for $30. And then there's also the Universe Mega expansion, which is has a whole bunch of other products for Shadowrun. You know, the entire collection of Shadowrun stuff also runs. So it's like $62 for it, gets you the entire Shadowrun collection. So if you've been holding off on picking up Shadowrun, by the way, if you're not familiar with it, is a cyberpunk fantasy setting. So it has orcs and elves and humans and magic, but also set in a cyberpunk setting. So it's kind of a mashup. Yes, and Rangdo of Arg brings up, they call it Shadowrun 5e. It is not D&D 5th edition rules. This is their own Shadowrun 5th edition rule set. So it is their own rule set, not a 5e compatible rule set. So this is one where we get into collisions on what 5e means. They have a 5th edition as well, but their 5th edition is the 5th edition of Shadowrun, not the 5th edition of D&D. So that's a good point. Thank you, Rangdo of Arg, for helping folks out. So $62 is actually kind of expensive for a bundle of holding, but if you are interested at all in Shadowrun and you're interested in the 5th edition of Shadowrun, this I would definitely is probably the cheapest way you're going to be able to get all those products. So it's a giant collection of Shadowrun products on bundle of holding. So I was also informed that 5e is the previous version of Shadowrun. There is now a Shadowrun 6e as well. So this would mostly be useful to you if you're interested in either just dipping your toe into understanding what Shadowrun is about and you don't want to spend a ton of money on it, but you want a bunch of products, you could do that. Or you could go check out 6e if you want the latest version of it. So that is the new Shadowrun 5th edition. Man, I had a lot of qualifiers in this one. Shadowrun 5th edition version of the game on... I'm getting news like, oh, this just in, not 5th edition D&D rules, and also there's a 6th edition. Yeah, so it is like being at an anchor desk. Good news, good information. Thank you. So that is the Shadowrun universe. There are two different bundles of holding together that give you the entire Shadowrun 5e collection. Dyson over at Dyson Logos just released his 2024 commercial map pack. If you are a producer of RPGs, or if you are somebody that wants to make some RPG-based products, this is a fantastic deal. $25 gives you 50 maps that he has developed, 48 maps that are available for commercial use. You can use these maps in commercial products. So if you are a creator that would like to put your hand towards making a product that you put together, maybe a short adventure, maybe you want to do a Shadowdark adventure or something like that, this is a great way to get incredible maps of really, really high quality maps. These are the same maps, not the exact same maps, the same map style from the same cartographer that are inside the 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. And you are able to pick them up and include them in your products for very cheap. It's a fantastic way to support Dyson. Dyson is a wonderful creator in our hobby who has, I've used his maps all over the place for all kinds of different things. And this is a way to give back and also to get access to 48 maps that you can use in your own commercial products. Great if you want to like build an adventure and give it away on your website, or build a short adventure and put it up on DriveThruRPG to sell, or itch.io or something like that. This is a great way to get high quality maps for your adventures that you can then sell under Dyson's commercial license. So that's a very cool thing. I picked it up. I already have him because I'm already a patron as well, but I want to continue to support him as much as I can, so I went and picked it up as well. What RPGs are you excited for in 2026? I found myself at the end of two campaigns. I just finished my 3x5 campaign, and I finished my D&D 2014 Shadowed Keep of the Borderlands campaign. Both of them ended just recently, and now I'm finding myself moving into a couple new campaigns. And it's been an incredible year for RPGs. Like, the quality of the RPGs we've seen is through the roof. Some say that like right now is when the output of the OGL catastrophe has really hit, right? It's now been not quite, I guess it's about 3 years since the OGL catastrophe hit. And what happened with that when Wizards of the Coast threatened, or I don't know if did they threaten to? They did. They said they were going to do it, and they talked about it on their website. So even though they were like, we weren't really going to be talking about it, they kind of did it. Anyway, when the OGL was at risk, it meant that a lot of publishers of other RPG products were also felt at risk. And at that point, they made, it only lasted a couple of months before Wizards completely switched around and released all the rules under a Creative Commons license, which then opened up things even further. But it did kind of move a lot of creators to build a lot of different RPGs in a lot of different directions. And I think now is when we are really seeing the output of all of that work. And there's some fantastic RPGs that have hit my desk, incredible box sets that have hit my desk, and really, really fantastic RPGs. So I am starting 2 new campaigns and 2 new RPGs myself, but I have a bunch of RPGs that I'm really excited for and things that I'm hoping to be able to touch on, maybe even run campaigns on in 2026. And I wanted to give you my list. Now I'm going to give you the same qualifiers that I give before. My list is not your list. You don't have to use my list as some kind of either confirmation or attack upon the things that are on your list. You're allowed to like the RPGs that you like. I'm allowed to like the RPGs that I like. So these are just the ones that I am eager for. They are not criticism of RPGs that are not on my list. So please don't take it that way. And instead of emailing me saying, I can't believe you didn't have RPG X, you can instead say, here's my list of the RPGs I'm excited about and why. And we can share all of this information. Great conversation for the Sly Flourish Discord server if you want to come hang out there as a patron of Sly Flourish. And we can talk about all the RPGs that we're excited about. And we do it every day. We talk about it every day. All right. So that qualifier, what's my list? And I'm going to talk about each of the games. I'm going to talk about why I'm excited for it. Dragonbane. As you know, last week on the talk show, the Dragonbane core box set was my product of the year for 2025. I felt like it offered a tremendous value of material. It was a kind of box that felt like the Mary Poppins carpet bag, where it just seemed you'd open it up and more stuff kept piling out of it. So it's just so much stuff that they packed into it. Right now, I think the sale's probably going to be over by the time you hear this. Maybe if you're seeing this on Monday, you could get it, but it's actually, I think it's 40% off right now over at Free League. So it's an even better deal. I actually bought one for a friend of mine. And just tons and tons of stuff. But Dragonbane is a really cool RPG that it's a D20 roll under system. So you roll your ability scores, 4d6 down the line, drop the lowest, and then flip 2 scores, and then you build skills. But the skills are not plus bonuses. The skills are your target number. So it means when you look at your character sheet for Dragonbane, you have all of the information you need on whether to succeed or fail. And you roll the die, and as long as you roll that number or less, you succeed. So that way there's no kind of negotiation between the DM and the player on what's going on. It is what I would consider to be kind of a folk fantasy, character-driven game, character testing game, where you go on adventures, very kind of typical D&D adventures, and typical kind of fantasy RPG adventure styles, and enjoy. It is a levelless system. You increase your capabilities by either rolling a 1 or a 20 on them. And when you roll a 1 or 20, then at the end of the game, you have a chance to increase that ability. So you're increasing your abilities 1 by 1 rather than doing like entire levels. So it looks really interesting. The artwork is fantastic. The product design is wonderful. And I'm going to be starting my Dragonbane game for my group next Wednesday. So I'm excited for that. Shadowdark was also on my list of top products for 2025. I thought that the Shadowdark core set, which includes the physical book plus all of the cards, to be a tremendous value, really, really well-designed product that gives you all of the stuff that you need to have your players all at the table running Daggerheart with just a single book. I really like that. I love the character the character portfolio pages that are built there. I really, really like that. So Daggerheart is really, really cool. Do I keep saying Shadowdark? It's too hard for me. Anytime I'll get into Shadowdark in a minute, but what I mean is Daggerheart. So I'm really excited for Daggerheart as well. I am starting my Daggerheart game next Friday, and it's a very different kind of system. So I'm a little nervous about running it. I'm excited to run it. but I'm also nervous as well. So it's going to be really cool. But I am looking forward to this. I have a feeling my players are really going to like it. I think it looks like an outstanding system. A lot of different support, so it looks really cool. So that's Daggerheart. Shadow the Weird Wizard. Very likely when we do a short Dragonbane campaign. I'm planning on not doing a very long Dragonbane campaign. I would like to switch my Wednesday group over to Shadow of the Weird Wizard. Shadow of the Weird Wizard came out, I think it might have come out the year before last. And I got the physical books for it last year. And I really like it. Shadow the Weird Wizard is built on the bones of Shadow of the Demon Lord. This is made by Robert Schwab. Robert Schwab was one of the designers of 4th edition and 5th edition D&D. And this is kind of the version of D&D that he wanted. Where Shadow of the Demon Lord was this very dark apocalyptic fantasy RPG. Shadow of the Weird Wizard is a bit more high fantasy, but it's still got a lot of Rob Schwab level dark stuff going on in it. One of the things when I was asked, like, what RPG would you want to be stuck on a desert island with? It tends to be Shadow of the Weird Wizard. And the reason why is that the amount of character combinations that are inside a single volume is staggering. It's hundreds of thousands of possible character combinations because you have your basic path, your expert path, and your master path. And you can pick any expert path or any master path for any of the basic paths. So it means that it's almost like having 2 layers of subclasses where you can pick your subclasses, and any class can pick any of the subclasses. So imagine the multiplicative benefit of something like that. My players for the group that I'm going to be running from have played Shadow of the Demon Lord before and really liked it. So I think that this game is going to resonate. We played a one-shot with Shadow of the Weird Wizard, and we like that a lot. So I'm excited for that as well. 13th Age version 2. I just got my physical books. They're beautiful books for the new version of 13th Age. 13th Age is another RPG I have run for my group and we really liked. It is definitely a super heroic fantasy RPG, 5e based, where the characters are truly unique in the world and dealing with the major icons of the world. I think of this as the spiritual successor to D&D 4th edition, although now there's another one on my list here that is also a spiritual successor to 4th edition, but in a different way. It is designed by Jonathan Tweet and Rob Hainso. Jonathan was the lead designer of the 3rd edition of D&D, and Rob Hainso was the lead designer of 4th edition D&D. And you can see stuff from both of those versions of D&D inside 13th Age, which is why I call it like the spiritual successor. They refer to it as their love letter to D&D. This is the stuff they love about D&D and wanted in it. And they package it in this book. There are 2 books, the Player's Guide and the Game Master Guide. Game Master Guide has all the monsters and stuff like that in it. I got this beautiful slipcase set for backing the Kickstarter. Really, really good product design. So I'm very excited for 13th Age. I don't know when I'm going to run it. I don't know which group I'm going to run it for. But it's definitely on my short list of games that I want to run because I have run it before. I loved it a lot. My players loved it a lot. So I already know what this is going to feel like to me, and I'm excited to run it. Shadowdark has the new Cursed Scrolls 4 through 6 coming out in this next year. And I would be surprised if I don't run some kind of Shadowdark smaller campaign, probably not quite as big as the Mugdalblub campaign I ran before. But I have a feeling that I'll take one of these Cursed Scrolls, and I would really like the idea and build a short campaign. I know I have a group, after my Tales of the Valiant group that we're running right now. I bet they would be willing to do a more lightweight game after we finish Tales of the Valiant. Tends to be that after you play a 5th edition game for a while, everyone kind of needs a break from the high mechanics, and so Shadowdark would be really fun. I've already got 2 of the Cursed Scrolls, but I haven't really read them because I kind of want to wait till I get the zine versions. I like to sit on my couch and really read it. So I'm kind of holding back until I have those before I get too excited about them, because I want to enjoy them when they're fully published and fully, kind of in my hands. So that would be late in 2026 at best. Dolmenwood. So I also got the box set for Dolmenwood. I think I brought it up on the show before. I'm waiting until I know that they're available for purchase in the United States. I think they just released them, but I'll probably do a spotlight of Dolmenwood. Dolmenwood is another classic D&D style game, set with kind of European folklore, tremendous production value, beautiful books. Everybody that's dove into it that I've talked to just absolutely loves it. The style of the game is very much like the basic expert version of D&D from the 1970s. So you have your separate saving throws and your separate ability scores, lots of different kinds of rolls for lots of different things, which is kind of a little archaic if you ask me. But I think it's also kind of like, kind of fun. It's sort of the classical style and a little bit of system mastery that even though you might look at it and compare it to Shadowdark and be like, man, Shadowdark simplified all this stuff. Why is it still going this way? It's still kind of fun. But the style of the game itself, the campaign, the lore, the game master tools, the monsters, everything in it just looks absolutely beautiful. The Kickstarter was just truly a steal. Like, when I opened up the box and looked at the stuff, I'm like, God, how much did I pay for this? And it turns out the answer was not enough, because, wow, it was a really, really good deal. It was 8 hardcover books and a cloth map and a nice dice bag and all kinds of stuff that came in there. And I think it was $125. It was a really reasonable deal. Draw Steel. My friend James Intercasso over at MCDM was the lead designer of Draw Steel. This is the other spiritual successor to 4th edition. James Intercasso loved 4E. He and I talked about 4E back in the day when we were doing podcasts and things like that. And Matt Colville is a huge 4th edition fan as well. So they built this high fantasy cinematic tactical role-playing game that is very what I would refer to. I haven't dove into it at all, really. I really haven't dived into it. I'm hearing more and more people that have played it. Certainly seems on the crunchy side. It's lower on my list because since 4th edition D&D, I've gotten a lot more into sort of narrative RPGs. I kind of prefer abstract distances. The battle tactics part of RPGs is actually less interesting to me these days than it used to be. Obviously, we all have different points of view on that. There are many high tactical RPGs that people absolutely love. So I'm not knocking it at all, because it's definitely a style that people want. It's just not necessarily the style that I'm looking for these days. I kind of prefer the more abstract distances, abstract sort of combat areas that like Daggerheart and 13th Age have, than the more like tactical moving around people, getting flanking and knocking them into different positions and stuff like that isn't quite as interesting to me these days. But I'm very interested in Draw Steel, and I would love to play it. I'm hoping that I'll find an opportunity to play it with James. That would be great. I'd love to, or anybody, I'd love to play Draw Steel. So I just have to find some time to play Draw Steel. The One Ring. I picked up a copy of The One Ring because I was a little worried about what's going on with Asmodee Games picking up the licenses or taking hold of the licenses for The One Ring. So I bought a copy, and then they had a sale on Free League, so I bought more stuff, and now I'm reading it. I'm like, I'd really love to play a One Ring game. I don't know that I want to run a One Ring campaign, but I would definitely be interested in playing a game, seeing how the system operates and things like that. Again, kind of lower on my list, but I'm eager for that. I would be very surprised, probably not in 2026. This is actually, I'm talking about forward in 2026, but I have a feeling this is going to go further out. But you never know how things kind of shift around. And as I talk to my players about what they're interested in, we could definitely shift around. But I would be certainly 2026, 2027. I expect to come back to D&D and particularly D&D 2024. I've not yet run an exclusive D&D 2024 game. And there are 2 areas that I'd love to run a D&D 2024 game, and one would be in the Forgotten Realms with the new Forgotten Realms books. Particularly, I like the Shadowdale region, the Dale Lands area. I would love to run a campaign there. And of course, Eberron. I loved my Eberron campaign that I ran a few years ago. I would love to run a new Eberron game. There's a new Eberron book that came out that has new character options. I haven't gotten a copy, so I haven't really dove into it yet. I was very skeptical of it. I did dive in. I lied. I dove into it a little bit. So I was skeptical because I thought like the new Eberron, which is Rise of the Artificer or something like Forge of the Artificer, it's called, was a short book. And seemed to focus more on character stuff. But I did take a look at it because I have a version of it on D&D Beyond. And I did take a look at it, and I was like, there's actually more campaign stuff here than I thought. There's more stuff about kind of how to build campaigns. It's an interesting book because it really is sort of like an accessory to Eberron Rising from the Last War. It's funny because in the beginning they're like, oh, you don't need Eberron Rising from the Last War. But really you do, right? So it is a book that kind of sits alongside Eberron Rising from the Last War. If I was running an Eberron game, I would almost certainly pick it up, particularly if I was running an Eberron game set in D&D 2024. I probably would almost certainly pick that up because, there's always just more lore that I can pick up. So I wouldn't be surprised if I have either Forgotten Realms or an Eberron game in my future. I don't know which, and I don't know when. And I actually have a feeling the way my campaigns go, it's unlikely that I will be doing that in 2026. But you never know. You never know how things are going to turn out for me. So those are the games that I'm excited about. Again, there's a lot of games on this list. There's probably way more games on here than I'm actually going to get the opportunity to play. Dragonbane, I'm almost certainly going to run at least for a few sessions. Daggerheart, I'm probably going to run for a few sessions. Hopefully running Shadow the Weird Wizard. 13th Age, maybe. Shadowdark, maybe. Dolmenwood, I'm not so sure. Draw Steel, not so sure. I'd like to play Draw Steel in the One Ring. I don't know that I'll actually run campaigns in there. And then eventually, one day, probably going back to D&D 2024 and running Forgotten Realms or Eberron. So we'll see. So I'd love to know what your list is. You can email me and tell me about the list of games you're excited for. You can also leave comments and tell me about the games you're excited for. You do not need to tell me about games that you're sad are not on my list, because my list is not your list. Instead, you can share the ones that you're excited about. And I've already seen people that are talking about things that they're excited about. Land of Eam, some people are very excited for Land of Eam. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a really, really cool product. I just don't know that it's on my list of campaigns that I want to run right now. Nimble 5e looks really cool. Maybe I'll have an opportunity to run it. I'd like to try Nimble. That's another one where I like to sort of like play it at a convention or play a short game and see kind of what it's like before I like commit to a long campaign. But I really like a lot of the stuff that went on in Nimble. So there's lots of it's such a good time for RPGs. We have so many cool RPGs, such high quality. All the ones that I mentioned here, like when I had them physically in my hand, I'm like, wow, the physical quality of these books has gone through the roof, right? These independently published games, box sets, beautiful work, thread-bound, ribbons, embossed covers. It's amazing what the quality of all these books are. And now the real issue is time. Right? Time and getting the time for myself and my players to sit down at the table and play it all out. So really neat stuff. Anyway, that's my list. I'd love to hear more about your list. I find myself at the wonderful moment of starting to build out new campaigns. And it gave me some time and chatting with some folks on Discord server and looking about previous recommendations that I have, like in Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, and thinking about what it means to build out a campaign and what the process is like for that. Right? For prepping a session, I have the 8 steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, right? 8 steps that you can follow. You can check them out to prep an actual session. But what is a similar process for actually beginning a campaign? What are the things we do to begin a campaign? The recommendations that I have in Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master still work, but I think we can kind of spread them out and sort of thinking about them in particular phases that we have. This is almost certainly going to be a 2-part show. One where we talk about parts of some of the initial campaign stuff, and then one where we talk about more of the outside world building stuff that happens later. To begin with, we build a campaign seed. You're sitting down, you're starting to think about a new campaign you're running. What is the seed of that campaign? And the campaign seed is the materials that you need in order to prep a campaign 1 sheet for your players and to get you ready for your session 0. That is what you're leading for. So you're not fleshing out the entire world, right? You're just getting enough information to be able to bring it to your players and to give you and your players a good idea of what you're doing. All of the steps in this are intended to do the right thing at the right time, to do the minimum amount of stuff that you need to do, to leave yourself lots of freedom to let things grow. And that's why this structure is built the way it is. So your campaign seed, starting with, you got to pick a system and you got to pick a setting. Right? What is the system that you're going to be running for your game, and what is that setting? This actually probably takes place before you even start thinking about a session 0. You want to talk to your players and say like, hey, I'm thinking about running a game in Dragonbane. What do you think about Dragonbane? Let me tell you a little bit about it, and kind of giving them the hook and the pitch before you do a session 0. And that way they get an idea of what you're talking about. And a lot of times, particularly if you use the sales technique of, hey, let's just try it for a couple of sessions and see how it feels. They're like, sure, a couple of sessions, I'll try anything, right? You don't say like, this is going to be the game we're going to play for the next 6 months. They're going to want to know a lot more about it, or they're going to want to do it with a system they've already understood. But instead you could say, hey, I'd like to try this for a couple of sessions and see how it goes. A lot of times that pitch works, and you might find out that after a couple of sessions, you're like, yeah, maybe this isn't the game for us, right? Maybe it's not really working out. So that gives you idea. But you have to pick a system and you have to pick a setting. What kind of game are you going to play, and where is that game going to be set? A lot of times the system and setting work together. Next is your campaign hook. What is the single sentence that you can write down that if you were going to tell people what is your campaign about, You want to give them a campaign hook. What is the hook that is going to bring them in? You and your fellow adventurers are traveling into the secluded misty vale to help protect the adventurers and hunters of the realm from the dangers in the forest, right? That is an example of a campaign hook that I'm using for my Dragonbane game. So what is that one sentence that helps you with the hook? If you want to see an example of more hooks, Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, I have a bunch of campaign hooks in it, but you come up with that hook. The next step is coming out with the truths of your system. So we're going to take a look at the one-pager, and I'll get into building a one-pager for your players, but the one-pager actually has a lot of the material that we want, and I'm going to use it for the Lure of Hylaeus, which is my Beast Feast campaign that I'm going to be running using Daggerheart. So the campaign hook is, when an ancient lure drawing monsters away from the village of Elmore begins to fail, local heroes must travel into the endless depths of Plovar Caves to fix it and find something delicious along the way. That is my one sentence campaign hook, right? That's the one thing that kind of drives, gives players a little bit of an idea of what's going on here, gives you a general feeling of like what the campaign is about. So it works. Then you have your truths. I used to call them the 6 truths, but a lot of times there's only 4 or 5. So it's like 3 to 6 truths, but we're going to just call them the truths of your campaign. What are the things that make this campaign different than all of the other campaigns and all of the other worlds that your players might be familiar with? These are player focused, so they are not secrets that you are holding back. They are information that the players and their characters would know about the world. And all of these things are driven to kind of show your players what this game is about, and also to sell it to them, right? Give them interesting things that they go, this is what makes this kind of cool. So the 5 truths of Elmore in my Lure of Hylaeus games. Elmore is a peaceful village. The quiet, rusty village of Elmore is full of bakers and weavers, farmers and cobblers with ne'er a sword in sight. By the way, I got this from the Beast Feast campaign, the campaign seed that is inside the Daggerheart book. So you can go, if you're running a published setting, you can take a lot of information from that published setting and put it into your one-pager. Farmers and cobblers with ne'er-do-well a sword in sight. The villagers are more concerned about not mucking up their contribution to the yearly Stew Pot Festival than the dangers outside their walls. I abbreviated this also because I wanted to make sure that that it fit well. The lure of Hylaeus is failing. Long ago, Hylaeus the forest mage created a lure drawing dangerous creatures into the caverns. For centuries, this kept any harm from coming to the village of Elmore. Now the lure is fading. As dangerous beasts rise out of Plovar Caves, the villagers call for heroes who might descend into the caves and save their people. The Plovar Caves are endless. The Plovar Caves stretch on for hundreds of miles, deeper and more sprawling than even the most adventurous explorer could map in their lifetimes. Different biomes are home to unique creatures, wondrous flora, and valuable treasures left behind by adventurers past. Beasts are dangerous and delicious. The magical lure draws beasts and blooms from all over the world. Many are dangerous and delicious. While any sentient creature is off limits, many wild creatures and dangerous plants hide delicious ingredients for wondrous dishes. Good and nefarious delvers explore Plovar Caves. You are not alone in your explorations of the Plovar Caves. Others seek to help restore the lure, find forgotten treasures, and locate delectable ingredients for their favorite dishes. Others seek to take what they want in the lawless depths. So those are like the 5 truths. Again, these are player-focused truths that I do as part of the building a campaign seed. So now I have my truths. Now, an optional thing is you can think about factions. Sometimes it's nice, and again, this is all focused on what's the material you need to bring to your players at a session 0. So this is all about bringing material to your players. So you might decide that you want to introduce one of several patrons. I've done this in my Eberron game. I've done it in some other game, my City of Arches game, same way of like, hey, here are some factions, and what one do you think as a group you would like to go for? And you kind of build those factions around alignments. Do you go with the shady relic dealer? Do you go with the priest who's trying to make the world a better place? Do you go with the spy master who wants to protect people, but ends justifies the means kind of way? So you can build out separate factions, and you might want to do it here if your intention is to bring those factions or patrons to the characters during your session 0 for them to select from. Alternatively, you can skip this. And you can instead introduce factions later on and let the players join a faction once they've actually had a chance to play. You don't really need it, but it's one possible way you could do it. Another consideration here is how much player-driven campaign building do you want to do during your session 0? A game like Daggerheart actually has a fair bit of player-driven campaign planning. But instead of just saying like, yes, I want to do it, think about the questions you want to ask the players, right? Like, what would the name of your adventure, of the Adventurers Guild in this town be like? Or what other sort of factions? Think about, you want to ask leading questions. You want to ask questions that are leading to specific answers rather than just kind of having this like wide open field and everybody's running off in all kinds of different directions with things. You still have a campaign you're running, and you still want to ask those specific questions to help drive your players to answer specific things about the world and know that the world is going to be cohesive at the end of that. You'll want to do that before you have your session 0. If you're going to ask questions like that. And then you can prepare a short adventure. Usually 1 to 3 scenes is enough. You're not going to have a lot of time during your session 0 to run an adventure, but you want enough of one to kind of get people started and get people playing the game. Usually like one good meaty scene can do it, or make 2 or 3 smaller scenes together. That's probably all you need. You can use the 8 steps for that adventure if you want. You can also leave parts of that adventure blank if you're going to be using information from the character development and from other sort of player-driven story elements to design it. You can sort of like not really care about what faction the monsters are tied to, or there are bandits, but you don't really say who the bandits are because you're actually going to figure out like the names of the bandit groups or what the information about the Thieves Guild and everything like that. So now that you've done your campaign seed, the next step is writing a campaign handout. Now, the campaign handout, about half of the material that you developed in the previous one is stuff that you're going to put in your handout, but there's other things you're going to have in your handout that you didn't develop in the previous section. And this is an example of a 1-page handout, right? The one that I was showing for the Lure of Hylaeus. I already covered the handout is, of course, going to have your campaign seed. Again, this is a sales pitch to your players to join, and it's going to have your truths so that the players have enough information to start thinking about what kind of characters they would want to play in this game. Then you can add another section called like your character in. Like what is the information that the players need to design a character that's going to fit well into this campaign? So an example in this one is your character in Elmore. Your character begins in the village of Elmore. The village counts on you and a handful of others to delve into the Plovar Caves, fight back the monstrous hordes within, help restore the lure, and perhaps find some delicious morsels along the way. Your motivations might include treasure. The ruins of ancient civilizations are said to reside in the depths of the Plovar Caves. Delectables. The exotic ingredients found within the Plovar Caves are sure to delight you and those you prepare for. Altruism. As a resident of Elmore, you take it upon yourself to protect the village from the beast below. And exploration. Great mysteries reside deep in the caves. What wonders might you find? And then this is an important one. Whatever your background and motivation, you band with your fellow adventurers to delve into Plovar Caves and save the village of Elmore from the threats of the monsters within. That is the central bond of the characters for this campaign. This seems heavy-handed, and it is a little heavy-handed. The nice thing is it avoids all of the problems of my character doesn't like caves. My character doesn't want to go to caves. My character likes to hang out in the village. Great, make another character. Make one who does like going into caves, right? That the character, if you're going to be running a game about characters going into caves and fighting monsters, you want to make sure your characters actually want to go in caves and fight monsters or are motivated to do so. Maybe they hate going into the caves, but they have to anyway. Whatever, they're going. And they're working with the other characters, right? The other one is like, they're not lone wolves. We don't want lone wolf RPG players. We want people that want to be in a group. So I feel like it's important to be pretty heavy-handed about saying like, the character you build wants to do these things with the group. Right? I think that's pretty good. So character creation, if you have any special rules for character creation, this is where you do it. You can tell if you've overdone it, if you start to bleed over to more than one page. You're like, maybe I have too many house rules, right? It happens, but you want to be careful about it. In this one, it's very simple. The campaign uses the standard character building rules for Daggerheart, including all classes, ancestries, and communities. Whatever community you have in the past, you now reside in Helmore Village. Instead of the standard equipment, you can select equipment from the Beast Feast starting equipment on page 275 of the Daggerheart core book, right? Because it's a different. And then we have our safety tools. And I have 2 sets of safety tools. One, pause for a minute. Anytime during the campaign, anybody can say, let's pause for a minute. They can ask a question about the campaign. They can ask that we move past a particular subject or topic. They can ask people to catch up. They can make sure that everybody else is cool. The point of pause for a minute is everybody breaks out of character, talks about something that's going on, and make sure that everybody's cool with it, and then dropping back into character. It's sort of my version of an X card. I like it because it also works well in online play as well as in-person play. And then you have content lines and veils, right? What are the lines that you're not going to cross in a campaign? What are the things that are that you're not going to cover in the campaign at all? And then what are some things that you may cover in the campaign, but you're going to cover them off screen? Examples of the veils for this one are like there's comic gore, and consensual sexual contact could be veiled off screen, but we're not going to have it as sort of a main part of it. And, there's going to be, I'm actually going to alter this a little bit because there's like comic violence and gore because it's about like eating monsters and stuff like this. But if you've watched like Delicious and Dungeon, that's kind of the level that's going on in there. And then I have hard lines around things like non-consensual sexual contact or harassment, PC-initiated torture, in-world or out-of-world racism, violence towards domesticated animals, violence towards children, misogyny, transphobia, homophobia, or non-consensual PC on PC violence, theft, or betrayal. Eating ingredients from those with a distinct personhood is also off limits. In this case, we have to kind of say, yeah, there's a lot of like eating. You're not eating orcs, right? You're not eating sentient creatures. You're eating, beasts, right? Beasts are the key here. So that's an example of like the safety tools that I put in my guide and make it clear about what the content is allowed and what content is not. When you've been playing with a group a while, they're going to be very familiar with this kind of stuff. They already know that that's sort of how to behave. But sometimes if you're running with a new group, if you have new players, you want to be explicit about the things that you want to have in your game and the things you do not want to have in your game. So that is the one pager. At that point, you're ready to run your session 0. Right? So now you've got all the material together that you want to run your session 0. So what do you do during the session 0? First thing you do is you go over the one pager. You probably delivered the one pager a couple days before the session 0, not too far ahead so they don't build a bunch of characters around it, but just enough that they've had a chance to read it when they show up. But you go over it anyway. Cover the material that's on there so everybody's aware of what's on there. Print out a bunch of copies and hand it out to them or send it to them digitally. Then you build characters together, right? Who are the characters? What are you building together? So you build your characters together and everybody's building their characters alongside everybody else. That way they're picking things that matter. They're starting to think about how their characters work together. You know that you're going to have a group that synergizes well. Right? That's an important thing that's going on here. If you did decide to ask some questions to fill out the rest of the world, now is the time to do that as well. What are the questions you can ask the players to fill in parts of the rest of the world? Adventuring guilds, religions and pantheons, temples, locations in a town, right? What are the areas that you want to have them? But make sure that you're asking specific guided questions to get the answers that you actually want. If you decided to include multiple patrons or factions for them to select from, now is their time to select their patron or their faction as well. And then once you've asked your questions, once you've got characters built, once you've chosen patrons or factions, once you've built out other parts of the world, now you can run your short adventure. And again, you're not going to get through a lot. Maybe you have an hour, right? So you're probably just going to run a quick, maybe one scene about what's going on. Ideally, you want to run the kind of adventure that's going to show off some of the components that make this campaign unique. But generally, you want to get players rolling some dice so they're having some fun, even though the next session is really when you're going to get into the game in earnest. But I find that running a short adventure really helps. So that's about half of what we need to do for our world building. We've got our initial campaign seed where we kind of outlined components of the world. We built our campaign one pager and we gave it to our players so they have an understanding of what's going on in the game. And we ran our session 0 where they built their characters together. They got their setting material together. You're starting to put this together. The next part, which we will cover in the next video, is filling out the rest of your lazy campaign. Now that you've had that session 0, now that that's running, what's next? What are the other components of the game that you fill out? How do you start running and prepping adventures in this setting? And how do you fill out the larger world if you're building a world on your own? We're going to cover that in the next video. Every quarter on Sly Flourish, we have the Patreon Q&A. Every month, a patron can ask an RPG-related question. Every week on Friday, I go through those questions and answer all of the questions I haven't answered. And some of those questions I bring here to the show so we can dive in a little deeper. Marcus K. says, rolling or not in front of your players, what is your take on it? How can it enrich our game? I roll in front of my players. My little joke is that I don't cheat at the dice, but I cheat everywhere else. And when I roll dice, I like to roll in the open. Only on extremely rare occasions have I fudged a die roll. And mostly it's because I knew that the way that die landed is going to make this game a lot less fun. Right. And I had the opportunity to kind of shift the die roll, but it's extremely rare. Very, very rare. Maybe once or twice a year out of hundreds of games. Almost always, when I roll the die rolls the way the die rolls. It's the other areas, the other sort of knobs and dials where I might tweak things a little bit in order to make sure the game is more fun. If they just had a really hard battle, I'm going to make sure the next one probably isn't going to be another hard slog fight. I want to make sure that the beats are there. Really, I'm thinking a lot about the beats of the story, and are the beats working well? Is the game playing right? Which is definitely a different style than some people. Some people kind of expect the beats to kind of happen on their own, and sometimes they do. But sometimes you just have a slog, right? Sometimes it's like, oh God, another encounter where the characters didn't have any opportunity to avoid it, and there's a ton of monsters, and then they're either going to die or they're going to fight through it. Do we really want to run that? And that's where I say you can kind of shift things. But my feeling is rolling in the open is fun. I also don't use a GM screen at all. I'm sit at an open table with everybody else, and I roll in front of everybody, so that when we roll, everything is fine. But I don't subscribe to the Gary Gygax. I roll because I like to hear what the dice sound like. I like to roll in the open, and I like to kind of sit on those rolls and see where the world goes. That said, I also think that it is a GM responsibility to make sure that the game is fun and to leave open the opportunities to shift things around if they are going from fun to not fun. Mostly that's in understanding the beats, making sure that there are both upward beats and downward beats, and that you don't just have not everything is super easy the whole time and now it's boring, or everything is super hard and it's just draining and lame, right? I think that's really my key for dice. But generally, I am a roll in the open kind of guy. David B says, now that the new D&D starter set is out, I'm thinking about the comparison to the Shadowdark Quick Start set. Obviously a very different price point and a different game system, but you've mentioned before that Shadowdark might be a better introduction to D&D and TTRPGs. Is that still true with the new D&D starter set? Yes. I think it's still true. I still think that Shadowdark is the best introduction to D&D, and it is a better introduction to D&D than D&D is. I actually had a show segment that I was going to talk about, but instead I'm going to talk about campaign building, so you will see it in a future one, where I want to talk about what is the essence of D&D. And actually, the designers of D&D 2014 sat down and played all of the versions of D&D to kind of capture what that essence was. And the essence is kind of stripping and removing everything that didn't make a lot of sense. And I'll give you a big one: proficiency bonus. Proficiency bonus is not a core function of D&D. It isn't something that's been in part of D&D since 1970. Not really. There's kind of arguments that, you had character, level progression sort of increase things in different places. I understand why the proficiency bonus exists, and I think it's important that it exists in D&D 5e. I think it's a big component of D&D 5e. But when you're teaching people D&D, and I've run D&D for brand new people, try explaining to them what the hell a proficiency bonus is, right? And if you look at the D&D starter set and you look at the cards, proficiency bonuses are included, but there's no description of what they are, right? It's not, you don't know why it's there. Why is there this bonus? What does it exist for? Shadowdark doesn't have a proficiency bonus, right? Shadowdark is just flat checks, right? Flat checks against the attributes. There's no skill system. There's no proficiency bonus. It's stripped everything down. And I think that Shadowdark, to me, Shadowdark captures the essence of D&D better than I think the D&D starter set does, and better than D&D does. That's not to say Shadowdark is by far a better game across the board, because D&D is going for something different, right? The current versions of D&D 2014 and certainly 2024 are leading towards heroic and super heroic RPG experiences that are very sort of crunchy and character focused and character mechanics focused games, where Shadowdark is much more about that conversational role-playing game, much grimmer folk fantasy. Characters, monsters can be killed by any set of characters, and characters can be killed by any set of monsters, right? It's a very different situation. But my feeling is, if I had to pick one and I can tell you that I have done this. If I'm going to teach somebody D&D, I'm going to do it with Shadowdark. Right now, unless they say we really want to just play D&D, but really the rest is just the brand. Right? If you look at what Shadowdark is capturing the classic versions of D&D from 1970, 1980 up until probably halfway through second edition, and managed to do it by using clean 5th edition rules. Other than the brand, it's a clear version of D&D, right? But it's just, when we come down to it, we're just talking about legal branding more than anything else. And I think you can really teach people a lot with Shadowdark. So unless they were very explicit about, I want to play D&D and I want to play the current version of D&D, then you can grab the starter set. I played the starter set last weekend. It's wonderful. It's a really good set. It really works well. It's got a lot going on though, right? That box has a lot of stuff in it. There's a lot of little tokens, a lot of little things going on. And I bet you I've seen it, a pre-gen card from the Shadowdark Quick Start Guide with a set of dice, and you're ready to go. So I definitely still think that the Shadowdark Quick Start Guide, to me, feels like the best way to teach somebody D&D. Controversial, I know. Justin Yu says, we have another starter set one. Justin Yu says, I recently got the D&D starter set after running low prep homebrew adventures using the 8 steps. Other than some adventures from the Arcane Library, I find reading and running many published adventures difficult. The published adventures typically are very linear with no room for anything else to happen other than what the author intended. In the recent starter set, there are many sections where the PC is expected to roll to accomplish something, but they say in the text that nothing happens on a failure and that the PC can just try again. Often the reason is because the adventure will not continue if they don't accomplish this feat. This often makes it feel like rolling the dice is just pointless. Now to my question, what are some easy to improvise tips to move the story forward even on a failure? I often find it difficult to come up with things on the spot. I know you have some examples, but I would like more ways to come up with my own. Old school in D&D had random encounters, meaning a failure meant some time passing, but that's often not the case with modern adventure design. Some RPGs encourage the GM to inflict a condition on the PCs to fail forward. See Torchbearer. So yeah, there's a few things going on in here. One is the general complaint that published adventures tend to be linear and often have die rolling that doesn't really accomplish anything. I will say, it's okay sometimes to just have people plain fail. And it doesn't, even if they still succeed with the thing, you can describe how clumsy it was. It was a lot louder than you wanted it to be. You lacked all of the grace that you normally have when you attempted this thing, but you still managed to accomplish it. So never forget that flavor works fine. Right? A lot of times you don't need mechanical consequences for things. Sometimes flavorful consequences are enough. If somebody is trying to do an acrobatics check to do an ass slide over a table and they totally screw it up, you could say like you end up doing like a belly flop across the table and you only make it halfway and then you have to scramble the other side, but you still make it. You can still use flavor to kind of show what a failure looks like, even though it doesn't hold the story back. So there's a lot you can do without having to have any kind of mechanical things. If you do want to have some kind of mechanical things, I think the Blades in the Dark style or a Powered by the Apocalypse style clock is a good way to do it. You can put a clock on something. Hey, there's a timed event that's occurring and the failures are increasing the clock, right? The clock is moving further ahead. An example of like one kind of clock, it's not even time-based, would be the alertness of the guards. Rather than having the guards immediately become alert when you try to pick a lock and fail, you could say some of the noise is echoing and the guard's attention is scaling up a little bit, and you start to push one up a little bit, right? So there's little things you can do to kind of increase, and clocks are a great way to do it, right? Clocks are my favorite version of things like skill challenges, right? That you're pushing clocks forward and back. You have success clocks, you have failure clocks, and you can move those forward to kind of say that the tension of the event is changing. Blades in the Dark does this really, really well, and it's something that you can port over to pretty much any RPG, any sort of thing where you're rolling a skill check, you can do it. Obviously, when you have something like Daggerheart, you have like hope and fear, right? And you gain fear when characters are sort of failing on things, or you're doing hard moves when characters fail. Obviously, success and fail in Daggerheart is different because you have hope and succeeding with hope, succeeding with fear, and so on. I get that. You don't have to email me. But I wouldn't hang on too tightly to the idea that you always need to have mechanical consequences for success and failure. I do think it's true that players just like rolling dice sometimes, and the dice that they're rolling is all part of storytelling. So even if you know that they still need to accomplish the thing, you could say, well, how well did they accomplish it or not is still a good way to roll a die and get the result. So I wouldn't hang on too tightly to this. I wouldn't worry too much about the situations where you see that somebody is rolling a die and you know that they can just take as long as they want to do it. You can, of course, skip it. And if you know that time is not a concern and you know that eventually they're going to be able to do it, you could just say, like, you take some time at it and you do it. But I still think it's fun to say, like, well, let's see how well you do. Like, go ahead and roll the die. And wow, you get it right first try. Or no, it actually takes you some time to do it. That alone, that changes the story a little bit. Doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, guards are going to come piling on you or there's a random thing, but not everything needs to be. I think the one lesson I would give you from this question is not everything needs to be mechanics. Sometimes in-world story and in-world flavor is enough to justify a success or failure on a roll. Michael P. says, one of the first questions I had immediately following OGL Gate was, with the new plethora of similar game systems hitting the market since OGL/Orc, do you think that small press third-party publishers will, 1, primarily devote themselves to one system, or 2, create content with conversion errata for each system, or 3, create system-neutral agnostic content, or 4, create wholly different versions with each product tailored to each system? We're coming up on 3 years since the crisis. D&D has survived, gone Creative Commons, and thrived if the number of companies on Beyond is any indicator. And I've noticed all 4 types increasing in the marketplace. Do you see the trend continuing? And do you have a preference or feel any one of them has advantages over the other? I don't think I have. The answer is, as you state, all of these things are happening. We're seeing more companies that are building agnostic material that's usable by anything. We're seeing a lot of companies that are focused on their own RPG system that they're building. They're building their own ecosystem and focusing on them. We even see some like Kobold Press where they are developing for their own home version of 5e for Tales of the Valiant, but also recognizing the fact that those books can be used with other versions of 5e. So we're seeing this across the board, and I expect, I talk to a lot of publishers about this, right? And everybody's kind of keeping an eye on everybody else. Everybody's wondering, should I focus on D&D 2024 as the lead version of 5e now, or should I be writing stuff that's still compatible with D&D 2014? I don't think we know yet. I don't think there's an answer of like, are you better off publishing for one version of 5e over another? Are you better saying like this, and this is kind of my preferred, is, hey, this is compatible with 5e, 2014, 2024, Tales of the Valiant, Level Up Advanced 5e, whatever. If you're running 5e, you can use this material. Monsters are like that. Spells are like that. I think even class options have some ability to be able to do that. There's some games it won't work quite as well for, but I think you could do a lot for that. I'm seeing more groups. We were just talking about Beast and how Beast is focused on D&D 2024. But D&D 2024 itself is still pretty new. It's not even a full year old since all 3 books came out, right? The Monster Manual didn't come out till the beginning of the year. So I don't think we know for sure that you are going to be successful making 5e products for D&D 2024 like you were. And because I don't know what the industry even looks like anymore, right? Definitely before the OGL, everyone was focused on doing stuff for 5e, right? And like that was really, and we're still seeing it. I just saw that there's going to be a 5th edition version of Traveler, right? And I have friends who are like, oh my God, no, why, right? But they're making a 5th edition, a D&D 5th edition or a 5e version of Traveler, which is really weird because Traveler has its own system. Why wouldn't you use that? So we're seeing, and publishers are trying lots of different things. I think, you're good either way. What do I prefer? I really like system agnostic stuff, right? I like system agnostic source books. I think are great. Monster books. I mean, it's a little hard for me because like I've got so much stuff. I don't know what I need anymore, right? And I'm always excited when I see new systems come out, but now I've got a big desk full of systems. So I'm not sure what I'm excited to see for a product anymore. I don't even really know. I don't think I could sit and say, I'm really looking forward to products like X. I could tell you what I want to publish, and what I want to publish are system agnostic things, right? City of Arches was like 95% system agnostic. I have 2 projects that I'm working on right now. Both of them are completely system agnostic. And that's kind of what I prefer, right? I think I would prefer to have material that I know I could use, like setting material. Midgard, like the Midgard world book doesn't matter to me at all if it's set in 5th edition or Pathfinder or whatever. It was originally built for Pathfinder. Now it's built for 5th edition, right? I don't really need setting books to be based on a system at all. So I don't know. We're gonna see. I don't think I can predict the trend. I don't even think I can predict my own desires. I don't even really know what I want. I'm kind of sitting back and I'm making my own things. I've got things that I'm excited to do. I got games that I'm excited to play, and I'm watching the industry and I want to see what they do, right? I don't really have any predictions about what anybody's going to do in any different direction. And I'm just kind of excited to be part of the RPG scene and watch where it goes. Justin Yu says, rant/question. Ooh, being a player in a TTRPG is boring. What am I doing wrong? So I'm mainly a GM and I mainly run 5e, but I'm trying to run more different games. I played a few games of Shadowdark, Pathfinder, Monster of the Week. Maybe I'm just a selfish control freak, but I find myself getting bored at the table. Combat's almost always become a slog where not much happens. Outside of combat, not much happens either. When I've run games for my wife and family, they also find it very boring. But I frequently run for a group who I now consider friends, but they keep coming back to my games. And I don't know what I'm doing right so that they can keep coming back. Let me know how you feel and what you think. Am I a bad player? How can I enjoy myself better at the table? How can I have my family have more fun at the table? I know it's not for everybody, but I'd like to try. This is a really interesting question. One of the Kobold books, one of the Kobold guides to campaign publishing, had an anecdote that I loved where somebody said like their wife had played an RPG and the feedback that they got was, this is like a 5 minute of excitement in a 4-hour bag, right? And I'm not sure that you're necessarily alone. And I know when I'm a far worse player than I am a GM. One of the interesting things about GMing games is I'm 100% on, right? I am on the whole time. When I'm running a game, there's no opportunity for me to pick up my phone and do anything other than like switch the music. Maybe even then I'm still too busy, right? So I am 100% on paying attention to everything that I'm really in flow. When I'm a player, it's not like that. And it's because the spotlight went from being like 100% to like 20%, if that. And you know, the other thing is I'm not sure that all GMs have a great sense of pacing. Pacing is really hard. Monty Cook talks about this in some of the books he was talking about with Numenera, that one, you know, understanding pacing is really, really hard. And a lot of GMs don't have it. And what ends up happening is you run games where you're not moving things forward quite fast enough and things are getting tiresome. And you got 5 players and only 1 or 2 of them are going to be up and running. And online, it's exasperated because you're competing with the entire internet, right? Like somebody's sitting there looking at their computer working on it and the whole internet is one browser click away. So it can be really easy to get distracted. So what can you do about this? I know that the things that help me when I'm playing to stay engaged is take notes, like write down notes, try to play off of the other characters, be a sidekick to another character so that you're involved because they're involved. And that's a way to kind of like tie your spotlights together, right? Like you're supporting them. Try to really get in the world. I have a friend of mine, and I remember when I would play with him, I'd see him, he would tilt his head back and close his eyes. And I thought like, man, is he having a snooze? Is he taking a little siesta? And no, he was imagining what was going on. He was closing his eyes and imagining the world, right? I talked to him about it. He's like, yeah, I'm imagining what's happening. Try that. Try like, you know, doing a little bit of like waking dream kind of imagining, you know, deeply imagining the world that you're in, thinking about what it's like there. What does it smell like? What does it feel like? Like really trying to get into it, right? And sometimes you'll find yourself fading away to getting bored, right? Try to bring yourself gently back again. It's almost like meditation, right? Like trying to, you know, when the outside kind of intrudes in, just don't fight it. Don't get mad. Just kind of fade back, you know, push it back, fade back into the game. Remember what's going on again, but try to get excited about what other people are doing. Try to get excited about what your GM is up to. Put yourself in the world. Think about it. Write notes. Like keep notes. Stay busy, right? Keep notes. Draw maps. You know, talk to the other players about what's going on. Stay in the world. Do everything you can to kind of get involved. And I find when I do that, I enjoy the game more, right? When I do that kind of stuff, that's something that I do to enjoy the game more. It's one of the things that I feel is a good recommendation for GMs to give to players is giving them those player roles. Who's going to be the cartographer? Who's going to be the quartermaster? Who's going to be the journalist? You know, the chronicler? Who's going to be the caller? You know, who are going to do those things so that they have other jobs now on top of being on their characters? Who's going to manage initiative? Who's going to help manage rules? Like trying to give the players other jobs that help them manage the game so that beyond just playing their character, they're also doing these other things. That is one way to do it. So, but you bring up an astute point, and I get it. And like, there's definitely times where, you know, especially like we have this constant attention driving world around us. We don't have boredom in our lives anymore. Like you've got the whole internet in your pocket, and that is damaging to us, I think, in some level. And it's hard for us to like maintain attention and get excited. And I'm finding it harder to just read a book these days, right? Because I'm like, oh, what's going on in Discord? I got to go find out, right? So I think like trying to stay engaged with the game and trying to find all of the hooks that you can, I think is a good way to do it. But that's a good question. Friends, I want to thank all of you for hanging out with me today while we talked about all things in tabletop role-playing games. Again, over on the Sly Flourish bookstore, we're having 20% off of all Sly Flourish books except City of Arches. Discounts are applied at checkout, and if you spend $60 or more, you get free shipping. Please don't miss out. Links for that are in the show notes. You can always subscribe to the Sly Flourish newsletter. It is absolutely free. You get a weekly RPG-related email sent to your inbox. You also get a free adventure generator for signing up. And you can join Patreon, the Sly Flourish Patreon. Patrons get access to the Q&A. They get access to the 5e artisanal database. They get access to a whole bunch of adventures and scenarios. Hero tier subscribers get access to the Readings and Reflections podcast, a weekly podcast, another weekly podcast that I do. And you get access to our awesome dedicated Discord server where we talk about D&D and RPGs all throughout the week. Thank you so much. Have a great day. And get out there and play an RPG.